Let's go to Eddie Steele in Edmonton. Eddie, apologies for the connections issues. Hey, you're looking good. You got us?
I got you. You got me?
Oh,
that was a big little...
That was a relief here, Eddie. Man, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about the CFL-XFL merger. As a veteran Canadian like you are, what's your take?
Ultimately, we all know what the business of the CFL is looking like. Not in the most financially stable position as we. So the merger, look, it can't be a bad thing to explore opportunities because the reality is there's a lot of money that The Rock can bring and American partnerships and sponsorships. My biggest thing is. That, of course, rules and things, that's all up in the air. And you have the diehard people who want the 3 downs, and some people don't want to go away from that. I just want the ratio. I don't want that to be affected because I'm a Canadian boy, and I like to think my skill set was enough to get me to the next level and then thrive for 9 years. But if you take out the ratio, Canadian kids might not get an opportunity, and that's where I have my biggest quarrel with everything. And we're all just speculating right now. I mean, everybody just has their own idea of what could happen. But that's the biggest thing is I don't want to see them take away or lower the ratio because the reality is it's such a big pool down in the States. There's so many guys you could choose from to fill up those roster spots. And if you're going to start taking jobs away from Canadian kids, that's where I have an issue with it.
Would you settle for this? Because I've been writing about it the past few weeks. Canadian teams have the ratio. American teams don't. We had that in the 90s. The games were still competitive. Would that be equitable, palatable to you?
Yeah, I think so. Because the reality is, you're at that point, you're not losing jobs then, right? Because you're going to keep the Canadian teams with the ratio. So, yeah, it's not going to affect things as they would be already currently with the number of Canadians you would have on a roster. So I certainly think it's doable. And I like that aspect, too, because there's this certain stigma down south that Canadians can't ball. And it would be awesome to whoop some teams' butts with teams full of Canadian kids.
Well, and actually, I have thoughts on that, too. The top, the top-end talent is just as good. There's just way more Americans. You run out of top-end Canadians faster. Pretty simple, right? But you must have a story of some American guard or center just in one-on-ones that you blew up, like first day of camp type thing, that thought this was going to be easy. What do you remember about that?
Oh, absolutely, man. First thing that comes to mind is when I was in Hamilton, my first training camp, I show up, a kid out of the University of Manitoba, and here these guys are, these O-linemen that are, All-Americans from USC and from Tennessee, big name schools. And I go against them and pretty much I whoop their butt. And I think, wow, that's what it is, because there's this aura, right? You go to a big name program and you're an All-American. This guy's supposed to be the man, but the reality is they're just human, just like me. He's just flesh, I'm flesh, and it's mano y mano, and only the strong survive. Needless to say, he didn't even last in the CFL for a couple of years.
Yeah. Well, there was one guy that showed up, I'll never forget, got out of a cab from the airport at Taylor Field back in the day. Today, I don't feel like naming him, but he just said, "What's the sack record in the CFL?" And we're like, are you kidding? That's like a guy walking up to the tee and going, "What's the course record?" and then shooting a 120. You know what I mean? It's just like they actually think this is going to happen. You get it. But what about the money, Eddie, and the pay cuts for the players? Listen, you're a father. You were a father playing. You couldn't play in this scenario right now. That, to me, that's the most heartbreaking thing that we're looking at for 2021. Or at least I don't think you could have.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. You know what I mean? So now you're got to take a pay cut, or they're looking to get you to take a pay cut on top of having a year where you didn't even get paid. Or if you did get paid, it's the choice few who had a nice offseason bonus and the teams paid that out. So that's kind of a double whammy. You know what I mean? I feel for the guys. And that's a rabbit hole we could go down, is the whole pay structure. I know front office and coaches, they've had to take cuts as well. But I threw out a tweet last week. Look at Scott Milanovic here in Edmonton. He just got paid his entire salary, and he didn't even coach a game. and he's making a handsome salary. I don't know exact numbers, but I'd say it's north of $300K. So that's a lot of money just out the door for someone who didn't even coach a game, let alone a practice. So to go and ask the guys to take a pay cut, yeah, the money's got to come from somewhere. But I don't think it should be the responsibility of the players only to have to bear that burden of taking a cut. I think it can come from the overall pie and not just the slice that the players get.
Well, Terry Jones of the Edmonton Sun reported it was $500,000 that Milanovic got. And I like Scott. He's just getting paid what was on his contract. But I don't think he even set foot in Canada, Eddie. He did it all from Florida. So... And then Dwayne Mandrusiak gets let go after 49 years with the team to help pay for that. And I think that's the thing that if Jonesy hadn't reported this, probably nobody would have even thought about it or known, right? And that's what's the players. Yeah, what's your perspective of that, given a guy that obviously you're tight with Dwayne, because anybody that knows him is, about how that scenario played out?
Well, it's garbage. I mean, Dwayne, the longest member of the organization, 49 years. I don't know how you do that. And that just goes to show you the business side. It's greasy. And a lot of people, they don't see the behind the scenes. You see so many people chattering on Twitter and chiming in with their opinions. And some people think they're pretty knowledgeable about how things work and operate. But until you're actually in the line of fire and you're in those trenches, people have no idea. In the business of the CFL, it's greasy. Football in general is greasy. But, guys get cut all the time. Guys have to take pay cuts. Guys get cut the day before they're due bonuses. And that's just some slimy business, and to cut a guy like Dwayne, to pay a guy like Scott, who, hey, this is not a knock on Scott. He's doing what he's supposed to do. Good on him and his agent for getting the contract. But like you say, I think he maybe stepped foot in Canada once for his press conference, and that was it. And to have Dwayne Mandrusiak, be a casualty for that, it's bogus. It's completely garbage. And, it's just the sliminess of the business. It's such a penny-pinching league. And it's unfortunate that it's got to be like that, man. Guys get cut over a $10,000 bonus. And in reality, $10,000, it's to a lot of people, it's a lot of money. But when we're talking in football contracts, it's pennies. Yeah.
By the way, you talk about people popping off on Twitter. I don't know if you saw Ricky Foley's tweet over the weekend. He's like, you guys think you're tough on Twitter? I will wreck you. Watch yourself. And the thing, Ricky will. I loved it. He will hunt you down and wreck you. Oh, you got to love Ricky Foley. By the way, if you can take a question.
Warriors, man.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. From Jack Fulton, watching in Vulcan, Alberta. Eddie, have the CFL players been given the opportunity to voice their opinion on a potential CFL-XFL merger? Some have, right? Fajardo said he's against it. Have you seen other players? Have you talked to players, current players, how they feel about this?
I mean, the general consensus from some of the buddies I've talked to who are still involved in the game, it's not something that people are overly, they're not jumping on the bandwagon. They're not thinking this is going to save the league or this is going to bring a ton of money into your pockets. I think the main feeling that, and you're probably seeing this too, is forget talking about the XFL. Are we going to talk about a training camp date? Because it's April now pretty much, and there's been zip in terms of this season, upcoming season. So I think guys are more worried about what's happening now as opposed to the merger. Because if there's a merger, I don't think it's going to be happening for this upcoming season, because we're talking things, a lot of things need to play out within a couple of months here. So let's actually talk about the business of this season and let the powers that be discuss the merger, because there's got to be football played. If there's not football played for 2 full seasons here in Canada, that's a bigger issue than the merger itself. So,
who would have thought when this thing broke over a year ago, let's say 375 days ago, that we would be on the precipice potentially of it canceling 2 seasons of CFL football? Who would have believed that? We wouldn't have believed that at the time, Eddie, and what it's wreaked on society. But anyways, we got to roll. We're out of time. Sorry that we had the connection issues, but you know what? It was impactful. Always good, man. Stay safe up there. Keep in touch.
Good to see you, man. Take care. Thanks for having me.
Our good friend Eddie Steele joining us from the City of Champions.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.